well, the next thing was compelling because Big E and Sheamus started arguing. See, all the guys came out of the ring and ran the ninjas off into the hinterlands, but then Big E and Sheamus, because they had some heat from last week, they started arguing, and they said, well, we'll just have our match right now. So all the rest of the WWE talent surrounded the ring, looking in fear for those 15 midget ninjas that they ran off, while Big E and Sheamus had a match. And to be quite honest, they had a decent fucking match. They can work. Nice, solid lockups. Nothing wrong with it. Sheamus, to me, is just so visually unappealing. He needs some iron in his blood, something. Anyway.
Speaking of these ninjas, it's a closed set. People can't just be walking around on the streets right now. People aren't just walking around in gangs.
But they're wearing their masks.
How did they get into the building?
They went through the ninja COVID tent to where they test the ninjas for COVID.
That would be a great gimmick. All the wrestlers have come down with COVID. We think it's retribution.
They're in Orlando, right? They got that right. on International Boulevard. It's right next to the DoubleTree we used to stay at down the street there from the fucking water park, the ninja COVID testing tent.
It is Orlando. We're going to find out it's like a bunch of furloughed Disney World employees. They've decided to storm WWE.
All right, let's see. Who's the motherfucker that's got the problem with Mickey? Huh?
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
That's a good Mickey.
Anyway. This one I was zoning off, though. I wrote, fans, look, do they move? Is this a still shot? I couldn't tell at that point. The guys around the ring weren't involved. They were a distraction. Guess what their break spot was, Brian, for this match?
Oh, I don't know.
They're just wrestling, and all of a sudden the fucking arena lights flicker again, and the announcer says, is Retribution here again? And they go to the break. And when they come back, the lights are on. They're still wrestling. Apparently, Retribution wasn't here again. It was never mentioned again. I mean, this is such cheesiness. This is like they're writing television for a bunch of fucking gullible fucking Republicans with these goddamn sucker questions at the just don't switch the channel because something might happen fucking teases. Good God.
Hey, I only watched the first few minutes and the last few minutes, but I could say just based off seeing that and then watching TakeOver, while Corey Graves isn't the greatest, he's a lot better when he's not next to Michael Cole, who is just the worst commentator in wrestling, maybe ever, because so many guys now in WWE copy him, copy his mannerisms, copy his way of speaking. Their hands are going all over the place. Even Corey Graves has that problem. Michael Cole, Terry Funk was just on a 1990 episode of Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now, or Pro Wrestling Spotlight that we reviewed on Then and Now, the podcast that John Arezzi and I do. And he said...
Good plug there, by the way.
Well, thank you very much, pwspod.com. But Terry said, because he was asked about the fact that the NWA keeps changing commentators, and there's issues now with Paul Lee and Jim Cornette, and Terry and Chris are gone, and Missy Hyatt's doing commentary. And Terry said... And Terry was a really wise guy when it came to figuring out what made things work in wrestling.
Yeah.
He said the most important thing about your wrestling show is the commentator. It's the most important thing about your show. The WWE has commentators that make me run for the mute button. That says a lot. It's every show. It's every show they have. It's either a three-man booth that's unnecessary, it's Michael Cole, it's guys copying Michael Cole, it's guys speaking to me in a way, do they think I'm an idiot? Do they think I'm a child? Do they think I'm an idiot child? Why are they talking to me this way? The most important thing about your wrestling show is your commentator. You know, at least with AEW, even with Excalibur there, at least the commentators don't talk down to me. At least Jim Ross, he is what he is at this point in his life, a cranky, drunken old man.
Oh, God, wow.
You know, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that's what he is. He doesn't hide that on the air. He's not all of a sudden Mr. Excitement.
Yeah.
Shivani is.
They're being themselves, and Shivani is excited. He doesn't give a shit. He walked away from wrestling for 20 years. He comes back, and they're fucking doing matches on the football field. He don't give a shit.
Yeah. WWE, the commentating across the board is awful.
You are an idiot child. They're talking, and Vince loves it when they ask, the announcer should ask questions. get the fans wondering, okay, yes, you should do that, but you also shouldn't do just only that. But Kevin Dunn has taken it and run with it. Michael Cole, and I like Michael Cole. I've never had a crossword with him. He actually, when he did an NXT show without Vince in his ear and could kind of actually call the matches, he did pretty fucking good that time. But Kevin Dunn's trained Michael Cole to be his idea of a fucking WWF announcer, and Michael Cole's trained everybody else to do the same thing, and that's where it's become, 21 years later. The first fucking Smackdown was me and Michael Cole. He'd been there like fucking 3 weeks or whatever. But now they view him as, and I'm not knocking Michael. I just said I like him, but he's not Gordon Solie. He's not Lance Russell. He's not Jim Ross, because he never called wrestling into territory to be able to have good wrestling to call and to be taught how to call it right. He is the perfect WWE announcer because that's what they want. And he does it well. It's just,
he's perfect for what they want. He's not perfect to getting people to actually want to listen to the commentators.
No, I didn't say those two things were the same thing. And
he may have as big a negative influence on wrestling now than almost anybody. Because look at the commentators, the Tom Phillips guy in NXT, the Josh Matthew guy that's now with Impact.
Well, remember every time I'd do a review, I would say, and then Michael Cole said, and you'd say, that's not Michael Cole. It sounds just like him.
Yeah. It's like a school of Michael Cole that has spread across the wrestling universe. He's awful.
Anyway.
The worst.
Speaking of awful and the worst, so this match continued. At that point, I wrote, their gravy is already all over my plate. And we're not 20 minutes in this show. The finish was Matt Riddle and the Possum King got in a schmoz out on the floor and distracted Sheamus for Big E to roll him up 1, 2, 3. Moving on, the next match was the Lucha House Party versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro. And as much as I love Claudio Castagnoli, seriously, you expect me to watch a match featuring anybody named Lucha House Party? Skipping ahead, Sasha and Bayley did a promo. Corey Graves interviewed him, and for whatever reason, it looked like he'd rather be at the dentist than do this interview. I don't know. I like Bayley. I've liked her work, and I've heard her do good promos. And this whole thing was the announcer and the two girls reading reciting a memorized script, complete with fake laughs. And I fast forwarded some more, and I got to Naomi versus Sasha, and I fast forwarded some more, and Asuka was in there.
Once again. Jim Cornette hates women's wrestling.
And I fast forwarded some more.
This is ridiculous.